So I made another video on the Watchmen movie adaptation. Go check that out if you haven't seen it. Spoiler, I didn't like it. But in the comments of that video, I got a lot of people asking what I thought of the HBO show. But I hadn't seen that show since it came out like 7 years ago. I remembered enjoying it, but getting a lot less interested as it started to end, and I probably wouldn't have rewatched it. But alas, it's what the people wanted. So I gave it a rewatch, and here are my thoughts about it. The plot of the HBO series takes place 30-ish years after the ending of the original, when Adrian Veidt secretly orchestrated the cloning of a massive psychic squid that he used to kill half of New York. The squid is referenced constantly, and is integral to the plot both subtly and overtly. That's something that I think the show does very well in a lot of different places. Showrunner Damon Lindelof clearly thought deeply about how the world of Watchmen would have continued, and the types of things that would be different now had the history of Watchmen occurred in our reality, melding 2019 America with the original story.
You know how we like our squid now? With lemon and a little marinara.
In general, when talking about the world of 2019's Watchmen, I don't feel like I can be as critical of it for not really feeling like the world of the comic. After all, it's not an adaptation, it's a sequel. It's been 30 years, and so it gets a lot of leeway and goodwill for the fact that a lot can change in that time. Honestly, the amount of risks it's willing to take depicting this world are pretty commendable. Characters call the squid event 11/2, clearly drawing it as the 9/11 of this world.
You were in New York on 11/2, huh?
New Jersey, actually.
I've heard that people who are in the psychic blast zone still wake up in the middle of the night screaming.
Steven Spielberg even made a movie about it called Pale Horse instead of making Schindler's List.
It's called Pale Horse because that's the name of the band that was playing Madison Square Garden when the squid hit. The movie's black and white, so the red really pops, you know?
The police use aircrafts based on Night Owl's ship Archie. A new superhero biopic series centering on the World War II era Minutemen is airing, which is definitely something that would have happened. Since Adrian used cloning technology and psychic mediums in the original to develop his squid, cloning is something that's practiced throughout the show, and drugs based on his original products that let you relive memories feel at home as technological advancements in this alternate history. In Watchmen's world, superheroes were made illegal decades ago.
You know, it was a crying shame they put you youngsters out to grass in '77.
But it injects superheroes back into it by having the cops of Tulsa, Oklahoma be targeted at their homes, and they now wear masks and use code names to hide their identities from the Rorschach-inspired 7th Cavalry, a white supremacist terrorist group. It carries forward that idea of superheroes as fascists from the original, that they are moral absolutists with total unelected control over who gets punished and who doesn't, and applies it to the police. In the comic, once the state employs superheroes, they stop being vigilantes. They're just tools of power, used for assassination, espionage, and war. That breaks the conventions of the concept and explores what happens next, something the show also attempts. Both police and superhero vigilantes believe themselves to be heroes, but are tools of the powerful, without as much individual heroic agency as they like to think. You know, Superman fights for truth, justice, and the American way. The police as vigilantes, though, often feel more like they're part of a police procedural than a superhero series.
I have a lead on your stolen car. We dusted it. Lots of prints. Yours, your kids. But there was another set of prints. They didn't match any known perps, so I sent them to Quantico, ran them through our database.
That doesn't make it bad. It's not even really a critique. But it's worth pointing out that besides Looking Glass, who I'll get to, these just feel like cops in masks, not superheroes by any stretch. Except for the idea that the job might grow back out into this world, I guess. The 7th Cavalry also wear masks, so it becomes a superhero versus villain plot in that way. It's just such a completely different thing that you can almost leave superheroes at the door when watching. The comic positions the concepts as recognizable. The original has a lot to say about superhero comics and their conventions.
You people are a joke. You hear Moloch's back in town, you think, oh boy, let's gang up and bust them. You think that matters? You think that solves anything?
Criticizing the absurdity and craziness of vigilante justice through its eccentric characters. That's the soil the story grows out of.
Because there is good and there is evil, and evil must be punished. Even in the face of Armageddon, I shall not compromise in this.
The modern day police stuff isn't as interested in that, although Laurie does like making the parallel.
You know how you can tell the difference between a masked cop and a vigilante? Me neither.
Red Scare is funny though. I do like him.
Fucking Nazi! I'm not a Nazi! I'm a communist!
The politics I think are pretty well done. I'm going to talk about most of the characters individually, so I'll expand on this more broadly later, but while the original's literal plot carried political themes relating to Cold War hysteria, fears of nuclear death, American imperialism, this one is concerned with conspiracy, America's racist history, and its modern day continuation. It's updating the original's consideration of what America was going through in the 80s to a new era. The 7th Cavalry is an almost exclusively political idea. I do wish they'd been given a little more character. As it stands, they're just a right-wing militia, but I do really enjoy the concept and design. They're an easy reflection of reality and a nice critique of people who are in love with Rorschach's brand of heroism. The original story painted Rorschach as a moral absolutist, refusing to compromise even at the cost of world peace. He's devoted to the fictional, ultra-conservative New Frontiersman newspaper.
Is it here yet? Oh, your copy of the New Frontiersman. Sure, it's here. I keep it for you every day, don't I?
His narration contains constant, vitriolic rants against moral degeneracy, liberals, the soft justice system, and women.
Meeting with Veidt left bad taste in mouth. He is pampered and decadent, betraying even his own shallow liberal affectations. Possibly homosexual. Must remember to investigate further.
And despite his strict black and white morality, he respects and lionizes the comedian as a patriot who had moral lapses, namely rape, murder, and numerous war crimes. But Moore is a serious author, and so even though his own worldview opposes Rorschach's, he doesn't write him as a villain. He isn't a preachy caricature, he's a person. And so even though Moore might not like or respect Rorschach, ironically, he's not written in black and white terms. It's up to you if you like him or not, if you agree with him or not. He's violent and mentally ill, driven to vigilantism by a deeply traumatic upbringing, but in his mind is trying to help the world in which he lives. He isn't a grifter or some evil actor trying to make the world worse for fun, and has a rough, seedy charm that's hard to deny. Rorschach is an incredible character, and I loved reading about him. But people who consider him to be totally morally good are reading him wrong, and idolizing him is fucked up. In reality, that happens a lot. But that's what happens when you write a character you find reprehensible honestly. People you find reprehensible might see themselves in him. That means you did a good job writing him. I think, in the world of the show, the 7th Cavalry warping a historical figure for extremist ends is a really smart way to both tie the story to the comic and comment on our reality of misinterpretation and martyrdom. I think it's too bad we don't get more about how the Rorschach Journal influences their worldview. They don't really explain that or make it clear. It's just something that happens in reality, so we're expected to take it at face value. But I am really glad that the spirit of Rorschach as an important piece of the original story, and not just as a right-wing caricature, is continued through the character of Wade Tillman, aka Looking Glass, who's my favorite on the show. He's one of the cops in the Tulsa superhero precinct, and he's the only one who really acts, is built like, and thinks of himself as a superhero. He's pretty clearly a Rorschach parallel, while distinctly not being Rorschach. He's steadfastly committed to justice and the law, and respects the mask part of the whole thing, which makes him the most like the genre definition of a superhero.
The concealment of identity is critical to our safety.
Laurie sees that too. It's why she insists on belittling him by constantly calling him Mirror Guy.
I know you know it's Looking Glass.
But you can have Mirror Guy if you want.
He almost feels like Rorschach before he was broken by the death of that little girl. Committed to doing good, but not all there, teetering on the edge of sanity. His mask is very cool looking and a great callback to Rorschach. He's conspiratorial and pursues his own detective work.
What are you interrogating me now?
Why would I interrogate you?
And like Rorschach in the original, he's on the right track, but kinda by accident. His conspiracy-laden mind is reading the clues wrong, but he's still on the trail, focusing on the 7th Cavalry's rivalry with the precinct the way that Rorschach focused on his masked killer theory. His origin is pretty incredible. The only part of the whole thing that actually takes place during the original Watchmen. He's a survivor of the psychic squid attack in New York, after a Top Knot girl steals his clothes. Which, Top Knot, great little reference. The squid attack is terrifying and brutal.
What happened?
And it badly traumatizes him for the rest of his life. driving him to support groups and constant psychic drills, along with the fact that he constantly wears reflectitine in his hat and makes his mask out of it to block any psychic event that could happen again. It carries forward the idea of superheroes as sad and pathetic, driven by trauma. His mask is worn out of fear, and that kind of makes it feel like his true face. Inspired by, but different from the way that Rorschach's did. I appreciate that the show can rightly, sharply criticize Rorschach, and also have respect for the uniqueness and magnetism of his character by giving him a spiritual successor. His episode is a major highlight for me. Other characters have successors as well, but their originators are also in the show, which is honestly pretty unfortunate, because their characters are mostly written and acted very inconsistently with their comic counterparts. Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias, feels nothing like the original character. It's possible he's changed in 30 years, I always have to consider giving leeway for that, but it's odd just how unrecognizable he is.
Their pursuit leads them deeper into moral and intellectual regions as uncharted and devoid of landmark as the territories currently surrounding them.
Motherfucking shit! Fucking damn it on motherfucking shit!
He's still smug and eccentric, but in a way that feels entirely different, and his situation is so goofy and ridiculous that I find it distracting, not in keeping or particularly respectful of the original story or his place in it.
The defense rests.
How do you find the defendant?
He's the smartest man in the world, working on a plane of intelligence above anything anyone else could plan for or understand. But we don't see any of that here. He's flamboyant, petty, comedic, and emotional. He delivers lines not at all like I imagined he would.
Have Mr. Phillips restring my bow and saddle up Bucephalus. I hunt again at midnight.
A disappointingly ordinary depiction for such a special and effective character. I can see Laurie becoming the person she is in the show. Somehow I can see Laurie in her, but I can't see Adrian in this guy. Adrian was cold, calculated, pained. He was gaudy, but he didn't have this whimsy and joy. Love seeing the comic accurate costume in live action though, can't deny that. The show introduces us to a plot point that he recorded a video for the president explaining his entire plan from the comic.
Yet the monster will not have come from another dimension at all. Will it come from me? A hoax, Mr. President.
Which is just so stupid and contrived. A thoughtless and lazy way to write. Adrian would never do it. The entire point of his plan was its total secrecy. The whole moral complication of the ending hinges on that.
Will you expose me, undoing the peace millions died for?
The guy who killed anyone who had any part in the development of the plan at all, from artists to poets to psychics to scientists, he just blurts it out on video?
An elaborate, meticulously engineered hoax to save the world.
I don't find the ending with him particularly good either, where he gets arrested by the FBI for his part in the original genocide in the comic.
You're coming with us.
Excuse me?
You killed 3 million people, Adrian. You're under arrest.
It feels like a whole lot of wish fulfillment, just contributing to the idea that none of this really happened, that it's fan fiction.
I saved mankind. Again. And you have the audacity to...
It feels like he's written as bafflingly stupid and the butt of the joke because the writers want to punish him for the genocide he perpetrated, which to me doesn't feel particularly honest, satisfying, or respectful. His successor is Lady Trieu, his biological daughter, who has a plan to save humanity too, just like he did. Unfortunately, her plan of taking Dr. Manhattan's power using a big Take Dr. Manhattan's Power machine doesn't have the same well-thought-out, mind-breaking, over-the-top moral craziness as Ozymandias' original plan.
If I can take his power, I can fix the world. Disappear the nukes, end starvation, clean the air.
It's so simple that it undercuts her idea as the genius child of the world's smartest man, who's supposed to be positioned as even smarter than he is.
If that could be done, I'd have already done it.
But you're just a man, Mr. Veidt. You have limitations.
Her more naked self-interest also makes her less interesting than Ozymandias as a character. She ends up being the real major villain of the season and unceremoniously tosses the 7th Cavalry in the trash.
You're gonna kill us, right?
Oh, yeah. Of course I am.
Which was definitely not the correct move. The 7th Cavalry, in my opinion, were a much more interesting piece of this story. The concept of her character isn't bad, but it doesn't go anywhere too interesting. My comic purist nature bristled a bit at how radically Laurie has changed from the source material, especially with how I feel about the other carryovers. Why even include the original characters if you don't want to actually use them? If you want to warp them in such extreme ways that they're basically different people? But Laurie, I think, works best. And I think that's due to Jean Smart's great performance.
Were you raised by nuns after your parents were murdered? No judgment. I used to dress up and fight bad guys too.
I feel like I can see the comic Laurie in her in a way I can't see John or Adrian. I do think it's a little odd that Dan is nowhere to be seen and she pines for Manhattan. The whole point of the original book takes us specifically away from that. But it's been 30 years. I guess, I don't know what happened. This time, I'll give it the leeway. Could have been shown though, almost certainly should have been shown. The fact that we get so much of Angela and so little of Laurie is really a shame. Her hatred of heroes and her embrace of her father the comedian's last name and more cynical view of the world is captivating.
Hey, why are you arresting? He's a hero!
He's not a hero! He's a fucking joke.
And in keeping with the end of the book, where after her experience with the squid and Vite, she seems to consider adopting the comedian mantle, and generally spends the comic pretty dismissive of superheroics outside of her midlife crisis with Dan. Her dialogue is fiery, funny, and intelligent, which is something I always felt was completely lost in the Snyder adaptation.
Sorry, I got a seed stuck there or something. You wear a mirror on your face, people are gonna use it. Or you could just take that silly mask off, Wade.
I might be giving it too many extra points due to that, but to me, it feels more like the real her. And it's nice to see her in live action at all, even if it feels like some weird alternate future. She does turn into a bit of a narratively unimportant zinger machine later on.
Seems only fair someone who cares about him should be here when he dies.
You look stupid in those panties.
But I think the story still has a lot of respect for her, and I think it's cool to get this interpretation. Dr. Manhattan, on the other hand, is my least favorite thing in this whole show. I think he's legitimately butchered. The godlike being from the comic, struggling to hold on to his humanity as his perceptions and power drive him to become increasingly detached and alien, becomes a human stay-at-home husband and just a different guy.
Okay, who wants waffles?
He's not John Osterman at all. That's really strange. The original story establishes him as having a distinct personality and character all his own.
This deserted planet, it is so wonderfully, completely silent.
I mean, that's so obvious I feel stupid even saying it like it's something I need to analyze. His humanity had this incredible subtlety, recognizably flawed and human, even with all his power. Here, he just turns into a hot black dad for Angela's kids. They just hang out and fuck a lot. Why they even have any real connection to each other makes no real sense. They just do in the future, so he likes her in the past.
I love you.
Oh, we just met. When the fuck did you fall in love with me?
I was already in love with you.
Dr. Manhattan does love the ladies, but he gets worse and worse at maintaining and caring about human relationships throughout the whole original comic. He can only appreciate and learn to love life by classifying it as a thermodynamic miracle.
Thermodynamic miracles. Events with odds against, so astronomical they're effectively impossible.
Why is he in love with Angela? Just because she's the main character. Everything in this whole plot line centers around Angela for absolutely no justifiable reason. He loves her, so he loves her. Which means, as far as we the audience are concerned, he doesn't. The plot has him invested in turning into a mortal, which I don't really understand why he cares about. Didn't he evolve beyond that? Doesn't he firmly and completely accept who and what he is? He literally walks around naked because he doesn't give a fuck about human bullshit. Dr. Manhattan is very meticulously thought through. He's a very high concept character. And this guy and this plotline just aren't. It faceplants bad when trying to depict it. it feels like Damon Lindelof just doesn't understand Dr. Manhattan's powers or his perception of time. It isn't just that he sees the future, it's that the future also makes sense naturally once we get there. For example, he tells his girlfriend Janie Slater that they're gonna make love soon. She insists that she isn't beholden to fate, but he assures her once the earrings arrive, they make love. As she's angrily responding, the earrings arrive at the door. Scared, she asks him to hold her, and the prediction is resolved.
It's 1963. An hour into the future, her sweat cools and dries in the November bedroom.
Her fear feels earned. John's basically just proven to her that all of life is predetermined. Their fight doesn't matter anymore. The implications of what John has become, what it means for her, what it means for her life, terrify her. It uses John's perception to create a really powerful scene. In the show, Manhattan keeps assuring Angela that he's gonna die, and there's nothing that can be done to stop it.
On the back of the truck is a tachyonic cannon, which they will use to involuntarily teleport me and then destroy me.
Besides being sickeningly sentimental and romantic about it, the actual death is contrived and lazy. The 7th Cavalry is trying to shoot him with a Get Dr. Manhattan gun, and he just misses one of them, just doesn't see him, and gets shot.
You were wrong.
No, Angela. I wasn't.
What?
I'm sorry.
The story seems to think that because it's already been justified as preordained, it doesn't have to actually write Manhattan a narratively interesting death. It's thoughtless and stupid. Having Dr. Manhattan in your story doesn't mean you don't have to think about the plot anymore. His powers should make it more difficult to write. They shouldn't be used as a shortcut. Also, this is the supposed reason he falls in love with her.
This is the moment.
Because she tries to save him even though his death is unchangeable.
I just told you that you can't save me. And you're gonna try to anyway.
That makes no sense. Dr. Manhattan is only amazed by human choice in that it results in unlikely outcomes. He doesn't believe you can do anything else than you did. The romance in this is nonsense. It ignores the concept of his perceptions. And also, Angela is hardly the only person Manhattan knows who does not believe in his view of fate. That's where a lot of his loneliness comes from. He's the only one who sees things this way. Everyone's always fighting with him about it. Making his death all about Angela is honestly extremely disrespectful to him as a character. We never even really get to see him as a person. He only exists as some weird sexual fan fiction. Which might work if it was supposed to be a reference to the sexual fetishization of superheroes in the comic, but it's not. It's supposed to evoke true love. Also, he's still a black guy once he turns back into John, which is really strange. And fuck does he look like shit. Was it that expensive to do the eyes? And the muscle shirt, like Jesus. It really bothers me how little this character acts like Dr. Manhattan, even when we first meet him as John.
The manor is a special place. A place I'm connected to from my childhood.
It makes me doubt that the fact that the other characters are nothing like their comic counterparts is intentional. Also, the eventual flashbacks that continue his story past the comic are so utterly and completely disappointing. He leaves at the end of the story to create life, and here we find out how brutally limited his imagination apparently is. A castle and a couple he saw fucking as a kid? That's it? Where's the unknowable god? Every villain in the show's evil plan involves transferring his powers to them. It's annoyingly straightforward and removes all his agency as a character.
And it is extremely difficult to be a white man in America right now. So I'm thinking I might try being a blue one.
All he is a sentimental idiot with power everyone wants to steal. And apparently it's dizzyingly easy to take it. He's brutally weak. He was a bit of a sentimental idiot in the original, but not like this.
You want to get down on one knee?
I do.
He's much more emotional, selfless, and human than he ever was before. Just communicating that this is not John, this is Cal. And who the fuck cares about Cal? And that's going to take me into talking about Angela, who really frustrates me too. I don't think she's an interesting character at all. Things happen around her more than her actually doing anything. Her connection to Hooded Justice is cool, And honestly, that would have been enough to focus on for her. But the fact that she's also so important to the Manhattan plot turns her into a plot device, with her fingers in everything that's happening all the time. She's a bit of a Mary Sue. I never understood why everyone seems to like and respect her so much, why Dr. Manhattan is in love with her. And as a main character, I don't find her that likable.
And when someone's doing you a favor, you don't lean on them.
Oh, so this is you doing me a favor, man? Because it looks like you're doing nothing.
Both of her plot lines are bootstrap paradoxes.
Ask him, how did he know Judd Crawford was a part of Cyclops?
Who's Judd Crawford?
No shit. Did I start all this?
Which are cool as plot twists, but they fuck up her ability to be a compelling main character. She has no actual reason to be at the center of the story. It's just paradoxical and empty.
I love you.
Oh, we just met.
She's important because she's important. It plops her into every storyline and tries to make her the focal point of the show, but she's the least interesting person in it. She's constantly confused about everything all the time.
The fuck are you doing?
I'm cooking some eggs. You like them hard-boiled?
Where'd you get eggs from? The fuck?
I'm confused.
You're confused.
What's happening might as well be her catchphrase.
What happened?
I'm guessing you don't remember asking me that 5 times already.
Her origin episode where she grows up in Vietnam is fine. It's not bad, it's not great. I'd say it's probably the least interesting origin story in the whole franchise. If you disagree, let me know one that you cared about less. I honestly don't have anything else to say about Angela. I didn't really like watching her, and it sucks that some of the more interesting characters and plot lines got shortchanged so that we could get so much of her. I'll say it again, a 7th Kavalry or Laurie episode would have been greatly appreciated. But we did get the Hooded Justice episode, which I think was really well done, and punctuated the political themes of the show while tying the story through to the original comic. It found one of the most prevalent moments of ambiguity Moore left behind, and found a hole wide enough to squeeze through. Hooded Justice in the original story was heavily implied to be circus strongman Rolf Bueller, who eventually disappears, his assassination by the comedian hinted at explicitly.
Had Blake found Hooded Justice, killed him, reporting failure? I can prove nothing.
Here, though, it's revealed that he was really Angela's grandfather, police officer Will Reeves. He pretended to be a white man to avoid being painted as a violent black man in a mask, and instead as a celebrated hero.
And if you want to stay a hero, townsfolk gonna need to think one of their own's under.
In the comic, his costume was designed to be in keeping with the KKK, the rope a reference to lynchings, and he was mentioned as having been sympathetic to Hitler. He was a far-right masochist. Here, though, his costume and character are recontextualized. He became Hooded Justice after an attempted lynching, and the KKK were the main enemy he fought. He's painted as not just whitewashed, but bastardized by history. In the reality of the show, he wanted earnestly to fight for justice in his community.
Hey! Hey yourself.
I'm booking this man for arson. He burned down a delicatessen on Jamaica Avenue.
But Reeves made the arrest.
We got it from here?
Belittled, ignored, and beaten for trying to help as a cop.
You keep your black nose out of white folks' business.
He eventually realizes that working within the system, trying to find justice the right way, doesn't work. The regular channels of power work in opposition to him. Think of him as less than human.
Congratulations, son. Do us proud.
The show finds an earnest, understandable, and commendable reason for someone to put on a mask and try to fight for what's right, and then goes on to say, in perfect Watchmen fashion, that even that isn't enough, that even that accomplishes very little, as he's beaten down by his supposed colleagues too.
You of all people should know, the residents of Harlem cause riots all on their own.
No, this is real.
Will Reeves' new way of doing things is immediately perverted by vapid glory hounds, and the narrative of what he's doing and why is ripped away.
And I have evidence that a secret plan is being developed by
a new crime boss who calls himself Mullock the Magnificent.
It reminds us who we're told were the main characters of the 20th century, and has us question who wrote that story, tying it to superheroics. Hooded Justice was also inspired by the real-life exploits of Bass Reeves, which is a pretty elegant way to justify the racial explorations of the genre in the episode.
No more justice today. Trust best in the world.
The descent of his idealism does again make me think of Rorschach, the lofty ambitions of the superhero crushed by a brutal reality, as Hooded Justice is driven to more and more violent means to find justice. There's no better intersection between the show's racial politics, interest in the superhero, respect for its source, and willingness to do something different than the Hooded Justice episode. As far as retcons go, I think it's genius. The show's past also echoes in its present. It has a focus on exploitation of the masses by the elite, thematically tying it to Adrian's squid, which also treated ordinary people as pawns of the powerful. In the past, cops and the KKK work hand in hand, and in the present, those in charge of the masked cops and the 7th Cavalry are working together too.
I came down here and assumed leadership of these idiots to prevent that shit from happening again. And my buddy Judd did the same as chief of police.
It's controlled opposition.
Each of us managing our respective teams so that we could maintain the peace.
Juxtaposed with the original, it tells us that the story isn't what we thought it was. It's bigger than these masked dipshits. In the original, the reveal of the squid was bigger than some masked killer theory, bigger than any of the characters thought or could handle. And here, the story they feel they're working within is deeply corrupt, totally captured. The real plot is outside the scope of what they expect. The focus is really on creating a white supremacist Dr. Manhattan.
I got you. You blue fuck.
As I said, not quite as smart of a plan, but I can see the parallel. The show justifies the squid ending of the original as supremely rich. So much of this story blooms out of it, all its best parts. This is more of a deep dive than I normally do in my videos. Let me know if you like this sort of thing. But what did I think of the show overall? Well, I don't love it and I don't hate it. Hope that doesn't make everyone upset. It's cool that it's something we got. It's thoughtful and respectful of its source, and it's ambitious. It has the balls to try shit. It attempts to have new and old characters that parallel what the comic had, filled their roles for a new story, modernizes political themes, and tries to add earnestly to its world. But it fucks some stuff up really bad. The established characters rarely feel like themselves, and certain aspects feel half-baked and lazy. I don't think of it as on par with the original, nor do I think of it as a definitive sequel. If you ask me what happened to Adrian Veidt after he killed half of New York, I would not tell you he got trapped on the moon and hung out with a bunch of clones in a manor, or that Dr. Manhattan approached a woman in Vietnam and became a stay-at-home husband named Cal for 10 years. It's fan fiction. Interesting and worth a watch, but just fan fiction at the end of the day. A solid season of TV. That's good enough for me though, and I'm glad it exists.